Okay, back from the shaping of the bowl or the stummel, and I'm pleased with how it took to the procedure, the process, everything. I didn't come across any low spots that were so outrageous that they will look wrong. Didn't have to take off too much wood. Did discover, by the way, what happened in the first place, why this thing was such a little piggy when it came to shaping. You remember I started sanding on this with these sticks, and after shutting the camera off and continuing, making damn little progress. It was like polishing a river agate or something. And this chunk of briar had some extremely hard spots in it, almost like little nodes of stone or something, and wherever they were was just stupid hard. So I ended up using basically one of these foam boards only on steroids. This is some 80 grit glued to a piece of wood with a little bit of foam, but it's still pretty hard. In other words, this is one click short of a rasp, and I still spent 25 minutes or so chopping away at this because the wood is so hard. And just for fun, I thought I'd see if it's that hard in between the high spots, and it's not. So there's a tremendous variation in hardness here, enough that had we decided to blast it again, it would have remorphed into something ugly. So anyway, the next step, you've seen me do this before when I added some wood to a shank and maybe something else, don't remember. But might as well, I can't assume that everybody's got the time or the inclination to go digging back through. Now there's 100 of the silly videos out there, and sorting through those, it's easier for me at this point just to reiterate something. If I've told you earlier, maybe it'll be new information for people that did see the old stuff. Anyway, I'll just dive in. What the hell? This type of tip on a Dremel tool is what we're going to do our shaping with. And these are these little cutters that come, they're burrs, they're called, and they're in all shapes and sizes, little teardrops, little cylinders, little saw blades, little pointy things. You can find them easily on wood carving sites. They come in these sorts of packages for the larger ones, and then the little pinpoint ones. Just hunt down and they're cheap, buy as many as you can afford, and of an assortment of each of the styles. And then these little spinner guys, and I'll talk about those specifically here in a minute. They're not so cheap. You can get into some money by setting up to have the full set, but you can get by with less than the full set. But this, by the way, is absolutely essential. If you attempt to retexture wood the way we're going to do it, and not use these spinning brushes, these abrasive brushes, you will not get a convincing result. And I don't care if it's, you can take one of these steel brushes, and you can have nylon wheels and all kinds of stuff. And what they're going to do is only cut on the ends, the very tips, which are going to cut trenches, and it's going to look like erosion on the surface of a planet. When you look down at it with a satellite, there'll be all these little trails between the little pebbles, and it's very obviously done with a brush, and there's no way to do that because of the way a piece of wire only cuts on the end. It doesn't have any abrasive qualities on the side, whereas these guys are molded, some kind of super tough plastic that's been molded with an abrasive in the plastic. So as they wear away, it exposes fresh cutting edges. And the shape of these, focus you bastard, it doesn't want to focus today. Some days my camera likes me, some days it's like a cat, it doesn't like me. Anyway, these are spiral, and so when they go against a surface, it's the sides of the strands that cut, not the tips. And it results in a completely different outcome. And it can be done convincingly. You can't tell the difference between true sandblasting and using these tools if you practice with these tools. So anyhow, only one more thing to talk about before diving in is the sequence of using these tools is probably the most important. If you were to take something like we have prepped here now, you've got these nice flat spots with the texture all around them, and you try to use just the first tip that comes to hand that's a small one, thinking that you're going to make replica little pebbly things, she no work. You'll end up looking like you have a smooth flat area that got textured by hand, which is exactly what it was. The wood, in order to look authentic, has to show some wave and some dip and some, it's more like the ocean, excuse me, where the large waves still have texture on them. And you have to have a combination of textures, and the only way to achieve that is to use the largest ones first. These, you might even start with something like this, which is a sanding drum, and get some unevenness going. Now, it doesn't take much. It's very easy to overdo it, but get the surface, the substrate, we'll call it, kind of wavy. Get away from the dead flat that you created with this sanding stick. And then keep moving down the line so that the last thing you ever use are these little teeny weeny needly things. And that's how you get your fine texture. And you just have to experiment. Either go really slow and carefully on the actual project, or get yourself a piece of scrap briar and practice and learn how the tools cut. And once you've done the best you can do by hand with these burrs in sanding tools, then and only then do you use the bristle brushes. Now, one more thing, a two-pronged thing. Again, I've talked about this before, but it's so easy just to throw it in here and be done. I'll cover it again. Don't use high-speed dental-style Dremel tools when using cutting bits. You can't control them well enough. They'll even burn. It's just it's like trying to ride the wind or something. What's that old phrase where you can't control it? It'll walk around on you and it'll leave little burn spots, and it's not what you want. Get a super slow, high torque motor for the cutting blades or tips, and then use the high speed one on the brushes, because these are made to be used at high speed. If you use these at low speed, you'll be at it all day. They've really got to be spinning to do what they do. And last but not least, if you're right-handed, it's going to turn, your machine is going to turn clockwise, which means that it's going to kick the dust that it sheds off of the contact right up your nose. It's bad. Trust me, it's like getting pepper sprayed. So you need a reversible motor if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, you're good. But you want to be able to mount these little bristle brushes so that the ejection of the material, all the dust that comes flying off, goes away from you. And I would recommend you run some kind of a vacuuming hood nearby, because you'll fill the air with dust of ugly kind. You get it up your nose or in your eyes, and it'll kind of spoil your day. So anyway, as usual now, I'm going to start doing some of the processing that I've talked about, just so you can see it in action in real time, and then finish it off camera and come back when we've got this thing fully textured by hand, and are ready to color it and stain it. So, alrighty, we'll just grab a there, this guy. Don't even know what these things are called. Teardrop maybe, or ovoid or something, I don't know. Giant sesame seed. And we're going to make the surface area that's now, and stay away from if it has color, you're good to go. Leave that alone in texture terms. And this is just exactly what you see. This is hard as stone, boy. Wow. And break up that flatness that you created with the sanding stick. With this guy or something like it, and then work your way through these things until you're finally down to the smallest ones, and then use the brush. So that is it. If you want this to see this in greater detail, go back to the set of videos called something about grafting wood or splicing wood. I repaired a shank with it needed an entire chunk of wood attached to it, and then that got recut. Yeah, that particular set of videos goes into this process in greater detail. But anyway, so once again, I'm off to the races doing this kind of thing, and we'll continue until I'm done and then turn the camera back on. Alrighty then.